Call the meeting to order. It's 7:30 p.m. Our first order of business is the Utilities Commission meeting, and the first order of business of that meeting is to approve the minutes of the Utilities Commission meeting of June 16th, 2014.
Move to be accepted as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show that it was passed unanimously. Cash on hand and in the banks for the Utilities Commission is $919,000, $919,036.36. Our third order of business is the payment of the bills for the Utilities Commission.
Move to be paid as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show that we unanimously agreed to pay the bills. That brings me to item number 4, which is Mr. Bob Sipes' Utilities Commission report. The always scintillating.
Few things. The hospital has scheduled a meeting on the 28th at 12:30 to update us on the exact plan for the IV-Sol injections. We do not have the formal invitation yet, but we were notified that that's when the meeting's going to take place. That should be followed up with
Who's we?
myself and Bill.
Okay, not council. Okay.
I think if the council wanted to attend, they would be welcome. It's going to be a presentation by Mr. Ivy on what the expectations and the time frames are going to be for the pilot study.
July 28th?
Yes.
The email said that after you were straight on the date that he would be inviting the council.
Okay.
So we should keep it clear.
And they will be serving lunch.
Oh, wow.
If ever
In
done.
that case, there's no free lunch.
The UV system at the wastewater treatment plant, I told you it needed an upgrade. We got that done. The actual cost was $13,693, which is significantly lower than I expected. I expected $17,000 to $18,000. We upgraded some of the infrastructure at the water treatment plant. We had some power poles that were going bad and some overhead wires that the insulation was falling off of. J.R. Smith came in and we got new poles, new overhead wires, so everything there is safe. The main pump at the water treatment plant had gone bad around the last meeting, and we sent it into the shop and we were running on backup pumps. The main pump is back and in as good as new shape, has a brand new impeller, bearings, everything. That is back in and operating. Down at the circle, State Highways notified us that there was a hydrant in the way of the design for the circle and that it had to be removed.
They just figured this out.
They just figured this out. They say that they went back to their engineer and tried to do a redesign that would allow that hydrant to stay in place, and they were not able to come up with one. Now, that does not impact coverage. From that hydrant, 200 feet in one direction in front of O'Connor's, there's another fire hydrant. 200 feet across the street on 291 is another fire hydrant. So that corner is still serviceable by at least 2 fire hydrants. Also, that's it for the report. I do have an agenda item, I guess, from Mr. Schertz. We had originally looked at the microbrewery he was going to open up and made a determination on what the allocations should be. But we revisited that after the fixture count, and we don't see any additional allocations. We're just going to have it at the 1. When I talked to Mr. Schertz, he said he may attend the meeting. Not sure if he's here or not.
I'm here.
But no additional allocation fees are going to be incurred based on the email from Bill that is here in front of us. So I think right now it's at 8 fixtures.
Well, that in fact, the microbrewery was never listed in, and the only thing that you could refer to, and you rightly did, was a bar, which is not. Kevin had written a pretty elaborate letter explaining the low use, and I've written a summary. I wrote him back along with the county, and you have a copy of it there in front of you. I think the best way to handle this in the future, and since we've passed ordinances about microbreweries, micro wineries, and micro distilleries, is the page 2 of the document I gave you to describe them as one unit in the micro size per 30,000 gallons per quarter. So if somebody comes in with a giant facility, and I think Kevin has acknowledged that if he was a lot bigger, that would be a different kind of thing. He also, we talked about how he can't expand too much at that site without, if he grows, he might have to go to another site anyway. So hopefully, ultimately, I can't put this into the books. You can. You see what I've given you, and I think that would be the move to make now, just to do this. But so Bob made the initial decision. You see on the last page where you guys can override it. It occurred to me when these letters were going back and forth that the county would hold this permit till they heard from us. So I called them a couple of weeks ago and said, please proceed. And I think that you got your permit, I hope.
Yes, sir.
And Kevin may want to talk about other things, but this issue has been laid to rest. And I think next time we revise our ordinance, we should put in just what I wrote on the second page. Three things.
Do we need to make a motion right now to,
You could make a motion to have us return with an ordinance change. I would really like to see these different categories put on something other than an ordinance, so that if something came up, you could make an immediate decision and say, hey, yeah, we've never had that before, let's make an immediate decision based on, say, Bob's recommendation, that this be called such. Those 2 pages you see are every listing of every use that was anticipated, and they're just not all there. We get other ones, we do fixture count sometimes, we do employee count sometimes, but in this case, what he described is not going to be any more of a use than a previous use, and they had already paid an out-of-town hookup there, I'd say 10 years ago.
My only difficulty would be, what is the definition of micro? So it would be the number of fixtures?
It would be a usage thing for that, or Bob recommends it be a fixture count fine. It was
Or we can adopt the state actually has in its online code, Mr. Schertz directed me to, they actually define what is a brewery and what is a microbrewery.
Oh, okay.
I think that's a good way to do it, and that way, if you're a micro distillery or a micro winery, I know there's already been one inquiry about.
Well, he's here tonight, why don't we just include in the motion granting one hookup that at the end of a year, if he goes over 30 gallons, I'm sure he would agree that we could come look at it if you go over that.
Yeah, I mean, my take on this, from the moment I heard about this, is that I sincerely do not believe that we are going to exceed the water hookup that is, that we are already entitled to and have been paying for. And if there are overages, I'm happy to, we'll deal with that. So, however is best that we are able to enable me to open my business and then also protect our community against anything that might happen in the future, I'm all for it.
That would be part of the motion, that we would grant his...
are you prepared to make that motion?
Pardon?
Why don't you make the motion?
I'm doing it now.
All right, all right, let's do it.
The motion for him to have a single hookup is granted, and that after a year, if he exceeds over 30,000 gallons per quarter, he will be revisited, and the possibility of a fee for a second hookup would be assessed.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Looking forward to
The
it.
records state that that was passed unanimously. So is that the last Chestertown hurdle that you have to leap over?
That is, yes. The next ones will be for a county liquor license, a state license, and a federal license. So and we also have construction. So my hope is to be open by the end of the year, but of course, there's a lot of still variables in play.
Understood.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And that is everything that I have.
All right, Bill, you added the solar voltaic bid opening to the Utilities Commission meeting?
I did because it's on
Yeah.
their property. If you'd rather have it taken up in the regular meeting, that's fine too.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't you just make that part of your
That's fine.
town manager's report, if that's all right with you?
Be glad.
Bob, I had a resident on Cannon Street who was having problems with flooding in her basement. Linda actually forwarded that to me. Was there any problems with water on Cannon? She said it happened about a month ago. She ended up getting about a foot of water in her basement.
I don't remember this.
500 Cannon Street. I mean, it could be...
Did she contact us?
No, she just had it pumped out. And it happened twice in 2 weeks, and then it just stopped happening.
It would be hard to give you an explanation for it without having a chance to look at it. Some of the possibilities would be that her foundation is leaking.
Right.
And when she gets a heavy rain, and
Right,
that's something, of course, that should be addressed quickly because it'll erode the foundation, wash out all the mortar. Another thing could be a leaking water line between the main and her house, especially close to her foundation. So the ideal thing to do would be to get a good look at the interior foundation and try to determine where the water's coming from. If it's coming from a specific spot like the pipe entry wall, that makes it more likely to be coming from a water line out in her yard. If it's not, if it's coming from cracks in the floor or cracks around the foundation or through just masonry, or it could even be coming through a window during a heavy rain. If it's not sealed.
Yeah, it looked to be a masonry problem because she had somebody patch up the foundation and I guess reseal whatever material was used in the basement, and that seemed to have stopped the problem. But I just wanted to see if there was anything on your record in that area.
No, we haven't done any work up there. As far as determining whether or not it's town water or rainwater, I mean, we can run some tests on the water.
Yeah.
The town water has fluoride in it.
Okay.
Rainwater does not. So if the water in her basement contains fluoride, it is coming from a town source, probably her service line. If it does not, then it's just strictly groundwater or rainwater.
Right.
Now, the groundwater elevations around here can fluctuate pretty wildly, depending on where you're at, if it's a recharge zone or
Right.
if you're sitting in a basin. So a heavy rain could cause flooding in a basement that's never seen it before.
Right.
If it's an unusually heavy rain. So there are some things that could be looked at, but if sealing the mortar around the basement has corrected the problem, then most likely it was just groundwater
Right.
intrusion from rain
Right.
events. But you should always make sure you direct all the rainwater away from the foundation, get it out into the yard 4 or 5 feet, so that it's not running down up against your wall,
Right.
because I don't know that anyone has ever come up with an effective seal to keep water from running between any type of soil and a foundation. So putting some type of a concrete walk or building up the soil elevation to a slope just keeps the water running away from the foundation and not running down the wall.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Sipes? Okay. That concludes the Utilities Commission meeting.
Do we need a motion for that?
Yeah,
Oh, do we need a motion?
Second.
I did.
Oh,
we're good.
all those in favor?
Thank
Let the
you.
record show that we unanimously closed the Utilities Commission meeting.
So it took me 5.5 years.
All right, so where did Bill disappear to?
I think he's on his way back around.
I'm going to open the mayor and council meeting. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the mayor and council meeting of July 7th, 2014, and the public forum of June 25th, 2014 with Shore Regional Health.
I wasn't here for the regional meeting, so
I move we adopt both sets of minutes.
there's nothing wrong with the mayor and council meetings, but
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show that we unanimously approve the minutes. Cash on hand and in the banks. The total cash on hand for unrestricted use is $1,099,791.54. There's also a Washington College donation for restricted use for $200,000. We did allocate $6,500 of that to the task force invoice, which leaves a total of $193,500 from the college's gift, for a total funds on hand of $1,293,291.54.
I have a question about that.
Yeah, I believe the college is going
Which things have
to,
gotten there?
It's been done, so shouldn't that be credited against that expense?
I would think so, yes. The
I'll make a note to
3250.
Pat. She probably just didn't update it.
So for those of you who aren't aware, we agreed to reimburse the task force members for the Chestertown Waterfront Revitalization Task Force the $6,500 they paid out of pocket to Ayers St. Gross for the dissolution of the task force, and then we asked the college to pay half of the $6,500 since half of the members involved were representing the college. So they did agree to pay $32.50 towards the $6,500 bill from Ayers St. Gross. Our next order of business is the payment of the bills.
Move the bills be paid as presented.
There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That brings us to item number 4. Let the record show that we unanimously approved to pay the bills. Our fourth item of business is Andrew Pons, the A.F. Whitsitt Center Pavilion Project.
Good evening.
Good
I'm
evening.
Andrew Bonds, the clinical director at the A.F. Whitsitt Center. This is Melissa Steuben, who's a counselor in the crisis bed wing, and we are constructing a pavilion on the grounds of the A.F. Whitsitt Center. A little background, you all can't see our PowerPoint. I have some handouts.
It should go on.
It should be on that one too.
We couldn't get that one
Oh,
to
really?
help us out.
Well, you can swing, no, I can swing.
No, you stay right there.
Give them to me, I'll pass them out.
Bad view for everybody.
Well, if you talk well enough, they'll be able to understand,
Okay.
Andrew.
The A.F. Whitsitt Center, we help people with addiction and mental health disorders, and we help them in the early stages of recovery. A little bit about us. We're at 300 Sheila Road. We opened in 1974 as a treatment center and a rehab for people who are addicted to alcohol and other drugs. Through the years, we evolved into a facility that handles dual diagnosis, which is chemical dependence and a mental health disorder. We currently have 26 beds for detox and stabilization, 4 beds in the crisis bed unit. We've expanded and contracted as our budget has ebbed and flowed. We're hoping to expand a little more, but for right now we have 8 beds for detox and stabilization for alcohol, opiates, and benzodiazepines, and the other 18 beds are for initiating the early stages of recovery. Melissa can explain a little bit about the crisis beds.
I'm the primary counselor for our crisis program, and we work with people that have mental health problems going on, as well as a drug addiction or alcohol addiction problem going on. So they might have PTSD and alcohol dependence, they might be schizophrenic and have cocaine dependence, but they also have another crisis going on, whether they were suicidal the night before they came and sat on our couch, or whether they're homeless, or whether they're pregnant. These are the people from our county that we're helping through the Kent County Crisis Beds program. And we stabilize them for about 14 days, and then we're able to help them to reintegrate back into the community.
Part of the referral process comes from the local hospital. I can't remember what it's called now.
Sure, huh?
Thank you, Shore Health.
Shore Health, the
Chester
emergency
River Hospital, I
department.
like a lot better.
Yeah.
But we help empty out the emergency room for someone that comes in and says, I'm desperate, I'm going to kill myself. And what they're saying is they've run out of money and run out of drugs. And we help stabilize them, do treatment planning for them, and then put them in a position to succeed. And we have 4 crisis beds for that. The problem with chemical dependence is only 1 in 10 Americans with problem with dual diagnosis or chemical dependence ever gets any treatment. And one of the most consistent statistics is that 1 out of 10 people who uses alcohol or other drugs process differently than the other 9. So it's a huge problem, and getting people in treatment is a key component. We also have some handouts about the impact of alcohol and drugs in our community and the benefits of treatment. One of the primary components of helping people change their lives from that of an active addict to someone in early recovery is reintroducing them to healthy activities. So outdoor activities is a major part of it. A lot of our crowd are like, they live like vampires. They sleep all day and then they go out and run all night. And we want people to rejoin the human race, and part of that is going outside, not just to hook up with their dealer, but to interact with other people in a positive manner.
And studies have shown that it's not just enough to do medication, it's not just enough to have cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's showing people literally how to live again. When we're in that addict mode of living, that animal mode of living, we're running, we're ripping, we're copying, we're doing what we need to do to get what we need. But it's not just enough to tell a person, well, stop doing that, because we can't live in a void of just not doing something. We're telling people, here's how you can begin to connect to your spirit again. Here's how you can begin to fill that void. And studies have shown that when you begin to incorporate outdoor counseling, when you begin to incorporate life skills, exercise, healthy living, just being outside and having that sense of being something greater, people begin to do a lot better in their recovery. They learn how to live again, they learn how to connect to their spirits again, and to not just not use, but to actually find natural highs. So that's why it becomes very important to have an outdoor space. Also, being a 21-day program, you get pretty pent up if you're stuck. I don't know about you, but if I was stuck inside for 21 days in a cement building, I'd be getting pretty stir crazy too. So it's also naturally therapeutic.
Right, and the gazebo that we are needing to replace succumbed to the elements after actually a pretty short period of time. It was opened in '96, and this was a picture we took last winter. And we use it extensively, we used to use it extensively for group therapy outdoors, for individual sessions, for the holistic stuff when we had outdoor activities. So we had to get rid of the old gazebo that tumbled down. This is our head maintenance man, Bruce Coleman. So we got a container, we started to remove the wreckage. We asked for volunteers from the community and got a very popular response. We had, on the end of April, we had volunteers from the Bayside Hoyas, from Hope Fellowship, members of the recovery community, volunteers from staff who came out to help tear down and load up the gazebo. We were the men at work. We took this 20 by 24 foot gazebo and one pickup truck full of good lumber, and the rest of it was so rotten we put it in one container. This is our crew, including a lot of the kids from the Chestertown Holders, Eastern Shore Holders. There's a pickup truck with the good lumber in it. We worked our presenters here into the presentation. And the volunteers got a nice little cookout. One of our staff members, Carol Johnson, did the cooking, and all the kids played basketball after we did. Everybody's pretty happy. So we're into phase 2 now. We got some estimates for replacing the gazebo. gazebo was a little too much in the bells and whistles routine, so we went with a pavilion. The estimated costs are, we want a cement reinforced pad. We have a couple of masons in the recovery community that said they would help us do the finishing job, cut down on labor. The building materials, we've contacted an outfit in York, Pennsylvania, and they've got a 22 by 24 foot rectangular pavilion that materials would cost about $15. And we have others from the Hope Fellowship and the recovery community who are skilled contractors. I'm a lacrosse coach with Kent Youth, and some of the fellow coaches said they would come in and help us put this together. So a lot of the labor is going to be donated. Unforeseen costs like rental of equipment and feeding the crews and what have you, we figured it'd be about $1,300. So the estimated cost would be $17,000 plus or minus. So we're in our fundraising phase now. I talked to Bill Ingersoll, who said we could waive the building permit fee, which is a boon. And we've got a commitment from Hope Fellowship. We presented to the Rotary Club, and they're also interested in making a donation. The reason we need to raise funds is in '96, there was a very strong auxiliary with the Upper Shore Mental Health Hospital, and they also had matching funds from the Mental Health Administration. So they were able to put the pre-existing gazebo up in '96, but now Kent County Behavioral Health, which includes the Footsip Center, is the sole occupant of the building. The mental health component went down to Cambridge to Waterside, and they operate on very limited funding. The recession and budgetary restraints, and there's the Alcohol and Drug Administration is in the process of merging with Mental Health Administration, so it's hard to get them to commit to fund our project. So we've had to move to the community for help. As far as commitments to this project, we have a lot of people that are interested in helping. It's like if we get the materials, that'll help us assemble it. Of course, we can always use some more hands to volunteer. The town council put it down already, so she's probably not going to want to help us out. But you're welcome to come out and want help.
Yeah, we've thrown a lot of information at you, and then we gave you handouts with even more information. But the point of this is that we are grant funded to provide services to Eastern Shore. Now, we're located in Kent County, but we help most of Eastern Shore. We are the only residential treatment facility on the Eastern Shore, and we're helping a population that doesn't have very much. We're helping literally the least of these, people that don't always have medical insurance, people that come in, they might have 4 or 5 or 6 things going against them, and be dealing with the trauma of abuse, and be dealing with a family that's not supportive, and be dealing with a lot of life issues where if we just dealt with one of those ourselves, we'd say maybe I'm depressed, maybe I have anxiety, and they have to deal with that while also trying to quit drugs and alcohol. These are people that can't otherwise afford treatment, and the biggest reason to help is because you have means to do so. I was very happy I got to hear about all the discretionary funds that Chestertown has, and we would be able to help not just our own residents, but also the Eastern Shore. People that are in our backyard, people that we work with, that we go to church with, people in our schools. There's a lot of people that are suffering from this, and we are able to help, so why not? And what a great claim to say, this is something that our town council did. This is something that Chestertown cares about. Maybe other people won't help this population, but we're going to stand up and we're going to do something. So that's why we're asking you to help. But we also have some short-term benefits that Mr. Pons will share about.
It is a tax-deductible donation. Just we got all that cleared. We'll have a plaque for anyone who's helped, either through volunteering help or donating money that will be part of the pavilion. We have a ribbon cutting ceremony. We're hoping that it'll be at our 31st annual alumni cookout and reunion, which is the second week of September. I presented this plaque to a guy, Bill Walls, who gave me permission to use his name. He was one of the original Whitsitt graduates. I think he was number 5 when we opened in '74. And every year he comes back and he cooks at the reunion. He cooks chicken and donates crabs. And it's nice to have him around. So we gave him a plaque in recognition for his contributions. The long-term benefits, we help members of our community to rejoin the community. Instead of being a drain and hiding from the Chestertown police, they're law-abiding citizens and they contribute to the tax base and provide consistent employment opportunities, and they're not a hazard. People in early recovery really appreciate getting a second chance, and they like the idea of being a law-abiding citizen. I think they like paying taxes any more than us, but rebuilding the community because of the impact that drugs and alcohol have had, even in Little Kent County, the impact of opiates, when the regulations for prescription medication for opiates tightened up, heroin made significant impact, and it's incredible how pervasive it is. We're just off 95, so it's people either go to Baltimore, they go to Philadelphia, or Wilmington to bring opiates into Kent County. It's amazing.
The highest rate of alcoholism in all of Maryland is right here on Eastern Shore. This is a problem that is in our backyard, it's in our community, and we can either close our eyes to it, or we can do something to help change that. So it's the opportunity we want to give.
I told Andrew he could come here so he could help get his message out, both on our channel and on YouTube. And I also offered that the town would send its crew out there and prepare the surface for, like we send our masons out there, strip the soil out so you'd have a base to work on. And if the council agrees with that, that's something we're very good at.
Are you going to other towns in the county, for instance?
We're beating this drum every place we can. I'm going to go to People's Bank next week, and we have a list of people we're going to talk to about potential donations.
So you're trying to raise a total of $17,000. Have you raised any money thus far, or is this just starting?
We've just started, but Hope Fellowship has given us some money, or has pledged some money, and the Rotary Club is going to see how much they can allow us.
Are you asking us for money?
We are.
Yes, we are.
How much?
17.
I like it.
That's what I was worried about.
You're right for the brass ring. How much have you
Do it
raised?
anymore.
We have pledged under $1,000. We have just started beating this drum. Of course, this is a drum we will continue to beat, but it's just under 1,000 right now. So we could use all the help that we can get.
Well, what is for tax deductible donation? What is it? What is the nonprofit?
It's a state facility.
So if you make your check out to the AF Whitsitt Center,
And
it's
on the
tax.
notes section, write Pavilion Project.
Okay.
What has the state said? Have you went to the state since it's on state property?
We asked them, and they have periodically, they will invite people to submit proposals for funding, and they haven't invited any proposals. We have our proposal written up and ready to submit as soon as they say that they've got some surplus money that they want to spend, but it hasn't happened yet.
How about if we put the concrete base in?
I want to ask, your catchment area is the whole Eastern Shore.
It is.
So are you going to solicit from the
We
whole
are.
Eastern Shore, all the counties on the shore?
Yes.
Yep.
Since this is nonprofit, you can also get a permit from the town to set up in Fountain Park
at the farmer's market on Saturdays mornings to ask for donations
Great.
as a nonprofit. It's an option.
Unfortunately, we don't need your tax exempt because we are tax exempt.
Bill, what would the value of pouring the pad be for them?
What was the size again, Andrew? It was 24 by 40?
It's on their hand.
No,
What's the size of the pavilion?
the pavilion is 20 by 24. The pad is
I just
22 by
think that
26.
that's something we can do in
18 by
kind, and you can raise your funds else.
He's-
I'd say that's a donation of $5,000 or so doing that work. I know you have masons who would volunteer. They could work with us and make it go faster. But our guys are really good at that, and I just think it's something we could throw in there without, we started this process in between budgeting where you have to submit for whatever it is you want, you have to say what it is, and I'm sure you won't mind doing that, but I just think this is a way we can help, and know that's done. And you can get estimates on how much that would cost, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, concrete's not cheap anymore. Think a 4-inch slab with a 6-inch base,
It's gotta be-
aggregate base that's rolled. We have all that equipment, and that's what we're good at.
So yeah, our new policy between budgets, which is where we are now, is to, if a group like yours wants a donation from the town, is to submit us like a line item budget and request an amount, and I think we put a cap on the amount as
I
well.
think it was,
22.
we could make spontaneous donations up to 500.
Yeah.
And then was it up to
Five?
5 or
Like
10?
$300, anything more than $300.
Are you volunteering the equipment
Sure.
only?
No, the
No,
men and the equipment to
The men and the
scrape the land
equipment.
out, make the base, roll it, and pour the
cement.
concrete.
Yeah.
I don't, not off the top of my head.
That's my suggestion to the town, and
The
that's,
cost of the concrete? Or just
I mean, they're just
labor and
about,
equipment?
in lieu of being asked for $5,000 or something that we haven't budgeted.
Do an in-kind donation.
You know, it's just an idea. To me, that's more meaningful than money, to have somebody go out there and do that for
And
me.
I would point out, because we have a certain amount of cash on hand, doesn't mean it's
The problem with us giving cash is
Right.
we're
I
actually
would
giving
rather deal
taxpayers
equipment and
cash.
manpower.
It's my
I think
neighbor
it's
who
more
might
fun
not
too, you
really
get more
care to
fully
support
involved.
this. But I'm
His son
taking
might
his
be
money anyway and
one of
giving
our
it to him.
customers.
So I like the in-kind part of it.
Great.
And, I would much rather see that happen than, I mean, I think it's an excellent, worthy cause, but again, when you ask us as representatives of the town, we're taking money out of our neighbors' pockets, and they might not want it to come out of their pocket for that. They'd rather have their pothole fixed, so you see the dilemma we're in. so.
If we wanted to make the in-kind donation, do we need a motion?
You would make a motion and we'd assign an equivalent value. We'd just get some estimates from Gillespie's as to what the value of that is, and you can credit us with
They
that.
have an estimate in the presentation for the actual cost of the material for the pad at $656.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I think that's no,
That's maybe the gravel underneath the concrete, but no, we'll find out exactly what it was, and if the council says we'll do it, we'll do it.
I think we should. I move that we provide an in-kind donation to the Whitset Center to lay the cement base and provide the labor and equipment to do so.
Is there a second?
This is including the cost of the concrete?
he didn't say that. He said
This is just labor and equipment?
I said the labor.
Labor and equipment? Is that what you said?
I thought you meant,
When it comes to actually, are we providing the concrete as well in your recommendation?
yeah.
Then we would wait, could we do this next time
I
and
would-
get us an estimate so we know what we're
Right.
Fine.
committing?
It's up to you. I mean, it's,
No, it makes
Well,
sense. It makes
in
sense.
in the new ordinance that we passed, we said we would wait
Yep.
till the next meeting for this very
We
reason.
would not to make any decisions yet.
Right.
So why don't we,
And we ought to give them one of those forms and let them fill it out.
Yep.
yeah.
well, you got yourself on air. We got lots of other people coming up, so.
So we actually have a form now, so we'll give you the form. Can one of you guys make sure they get the form?
Yeah, I forgot that there was a form, but
Oh,
I'll
there's a
see if I
form.
can find it. I'm
Take
gonna
care of
get
finding
it.
the form tomorrow and get it.
Sorry.
We'll definitely do something, but we'll, give us a couple weeks to deliberate, and we'll take it up at our next meeting.
Right.
And hopefully with this great exposure that you get on Channel 7, you won't even need our money. It'll just come flowing
People
in.
will be knocking down your door.
People lining up outside right now, I can see.
Well, we're also going to go to Gillespie with our hat in our hand and see if he can.
Maybe they'll
Sharpen the pencil for us.
Right. And then we can do
Okay.
And the county's commissioners meeting is tomorrow night. Commissioner Pickram's here. They have a lot more money than we do.
Only a matter of zeros, we still have more people to serve than you do.
4 times. 0 is 10 times.
Okay, so we'll get you the form, make a, kind of like a formal request, and we'll take it up at our next meeting.
Great, thank you for your
So can we
comments.
make sure that gets on the agenda? Thank you, guys.
Good grant.
All right, the next item on the agenda is Kristen Owen from DCA.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm here on behalf of DCA, and I won't take up too much of your time. I wanted to represent the business community and formally thank you for the completion of the Cannon Street lot, and by thanking you, I also thank the town staff and town employees who actually did the labor. And also wanted to extend our appreciation to Councilwoman Kuiper for taking the survey of business owners around town to get their feedback on the issue of the parking meters, and then also for your swift action at your previous meeting to make a decision to temporarily bag those meters for 6 months. In order for this trial period to be more successful and to be more informative, DCA did have some additional recommendations for how we could perhaps shape the long-term planning for the parking in downtown Chestertown. And some of these suggestions were made by past President Nancy McGuire in prior months, so we just sort of wanted to reiterate what we see some additional plans of action could be. One of the first recommendations that we wanted to suggest is to either screen print or spray paint with stencil or somehow mark the bags for the meters with some sort of friendly message to the effect of, we have retired our parking meters in appreciation of your business. That's something that just tells people when they pull up to that spot that they won't be, needing to put a quarter in, and it also explains that the town is committed to providing a more efficient and friendly and convenient experience to people who visit town and come downtown to do business. DCA is happy to look into the costs associated with taking that project on. I've done a little preliminary research, and I can summarize that in writing for you for your consideration if it's something that you'd be interested in. Additionally, part of the success of this project is letting people know where they can park other than on the street in front of the businesses. Because one of the fears that many people have is that business owners, property owners, and employees of the larger businesses downtown will start utilizing the on-street parking and take those spots away from people who are coming to shop and spend money and do business. So we think that a good idea would be to send some sort of message to the business owners and employers in town, and I'm happy to draft an email template or a memo template that employers can use to circulate to their employees, explaining the benefits of leaving those street spaces to people who are visiting and using the more public spaces and lots that are off-street. I think the biggest thing is to also inform by our own actions, so the business owners can make a commitment to free up that on-street parking for others. In addition, and we know that there are plans to discuss directional signage, but appropriate signage in that Cannon Street lot will let people know that it is open for use. At this point, it's open and it's a beautiful looking parking lot as parking lots go, but I think that some people might not realize that it's available for public use. So we'd like to propose the addition of a sign just stating that it is a parking lot for public use. And we'd especially like to encourage the businesses to use that space as well. And just as sort of following up for 6 months to see how this trial period goes, we as a business organization are willing to make the commitment to help monitor what's going on outside of our own business doors. And we're happy to compile any recommendations or feedback that we get from the business owners and make a formal presentation to you in 6 months to let you know if there are any additional recommendations from the business community and to let you know how it works. Since a big part of having the meters bagged is going to be that lack of enforcement, so to speak. So, we can give you an idea of how it's going, what people think the turnover rate is like, and if it's acceptable and how they need to do business. I know that a couple of business owners and just residents in general had expressed concern about parking in front of Stam's drugstore, for example, being, occupied by people for a stretch of all day. And it could be that maybe there are some spots that should be considered 15-minute parking zones in the future. But we're happy to keep an eye on that and make some recommendations to you. But overall, we just wanted to thank you for taking action, because we think that having convenient and efficient and free parking is a very vital component of having a economically healthy downtown district. So,
Do you have an idea in your research on the stenciling of like approximate cost?
well, I looked today, I was thinking screen printing would be the way to go. That would be the more long-lasting professional way to go about it. You can buy screen printing kits for about $250. Still requires somebody to do it. A member of our executive committee had reached out to Baycraft Printing, and they said that they wouldn't take our existing bags and print them. I don't mean to throw them under the bus, but we can certainly research that option further. And then somebody mentioned to me, well, you could just stencil and spray paint, which I hadn't really considered, but I looked it up, and you can have custom stencils made that are about 12 inches by 12 inches, that 2 stencils with shipping would be a little under $60. So I
And
figured-
someone has to spray paint
And somebody
it.
has to buy spray paint and spray, but again, you get a team of people willing to stencil and spray, it could be a group effort.
Where do you get the no parking bags for the farmer's market? Did you buy them or did Owen buy them?
I think Owen bought them.
Okay.
Are they not cloth?
They're cloth.
They're light cloth, they're not heavy duty like.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, we ought to compare that to the cost of new bags.
Just replace them.
I had Sydney do an inventory of how many bags we had, tell me sort of what shape they were in, and I was getting ready to call Dustin about it too. Didn't know how far you guys were going with it.
Yeah. And
Thinking maybe the message might be shortened a little bit, like
Yeah.
it's free.
Yeah,
Something less than
trust me, I think I've condensed it from some of the other recommendations, so, yeah, we can certainly look into that. And I can research the cost of.
How many
custom.
meters do we have? And so like how many bags is this?
I've got an
50?
exact count. If you want, I'll go get it off my computer. I think it's about 90.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
15 on 2 sides, on only 2 sides of Fountain Park
Okay.
and behind the Nearly Mill. That's not.
Yeah,
counting.
they're double bags and they're single bags, and I think we've got about 90 or 100 parking spaces that we bag. The doubles, there's a lot more room. You could almost write the First Amendment.
So we wanted to kick this in on August 1st, which happens to be First Fridays. So I think it would be neat if we targeted that as a date to put on the new bags. Is that realistic though?
Well, we're bagging the bags for Crazy Days, remember? We have to put bags up
This week,
this week.
we're bagging it. We can
Just like keep them up?
Might as well.
I assure you,
I
they
think
won't
we
have
ought to
any
look
problem
at the
parking
price
there
of
with
new
a stack of
bags.
bags.
I mean,
If it's something that we wanted to have a quick message up, for the change, I mean, we could also look into just spraying every other. If we wanted to have something that was in place for First Friday, I think that would be realistic. But I can follow up with you with more specifics.
One of the, okay, I'm going to change topics.
Okay.
One of the things we talked about with the new parking lot was that during business hours, that would be like employee parking. And that perhaps those vehicles would have a sticker of some kind.
And we...
Are you guys, what do you think?
Well, we discussed that it would definitely be an option, and it would be good for research purposes because somebody could take a quick spin around the lot and just sort of see how it's working and gauge the effectiveness. The other thought was too, if an employee had a sticker on their car, then maybe they would feel ashamed if they were taking up a metered spot, and it would be sort of a mechanism for self-enforcement. So we could look into it. I was a little concerned about a mechanism for public shaming, and I mean, but if the mayor and council think that it would be an effective tool and it would be helpful for research purposes.
If you make sure they put a sticker on their car and then we catch it on the street and give them a ticket, I bet you'll start using the parking.
Well, and I guess that's the question, yeah. I mean, is there a level of enforcement that you would want to put into play?
I'd rather just sort of gauge the demand or the number of employers who will use that lot by having them sign up, first come, first serve. I mean, obviously the ones that are nearby would fill it first, being that's the way it goes around here. But I'd love to have people just go to DCA and say, we're signing up.
People are aware of it. I've been by there several times going down the trail, and I see 4 cars, 5 cars. I mean, it's anything but full. This is on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock.
Right.
Well, that's going to, I mean, that's part of the signage, because if it's going to fool people on Saturday, that it's going to be empty to a good extent on Saturdays and Sundays, I would think. Unless it's employers that are in that area that work Saturdays.
Right. I mean, it's part of my goal, Mr. Stetson, too, now that we have, you adopted the motion to bag the meters temporarily. That lot is open and it is functional. I think it is all about the message and sending a specific message about parking and what the options are, and making sure that employers have that message to also give to their employees and set the example for everyone.
How much is a sign, like just a T-alley, nice
I don't think
sign?
it'd be any more than a couple $100, but we can probably find pre-made signs, say employee parking.
Because I think one thing that would be easiest to do is just have a sign that says employee parking, and maybe have hours like Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and then hopefully see if they'll actually use it. Because I have to say, I'm a little bit skeptical that someone with a business down by Queen Street is going to park there and walk, because just not the way people just don't work like that mentally a lot of times.
I, at the bank, will do my best to get all coworkers to use.
I don't want to think out any of your employers, I mean, or your, but I've seen a number of them who park right in front of their business.
Exactly. And that might be how, a way that the sticker system would work. Again, we can't force anybody to actually, put the little window cling in their car, but maybe the first come, first serve would get enough people off the street and into the lot.
And to say we're open for business, this parking lot is...
Would the council be amenable to having a temporary sign until we get like the whole directional signage package put together that says employee parking with certain hours on it?
Yeah.
So it's, in contrary to what Kristen said, it is not it's not intended to be a parking lot for the public.
After business hours,
Yes.
I think it's fine.
But
And on
Didn't we
weekends.
have
That's not when we have a
sign
parking
to do the signage?
Yes, we're going to have our first meeting tomorrow, actually.
Oh, okay. I thought so.
I'm not opposed to the employee parking,
All right.
not at all.
Do we need a motion to do that?
Just do the same.
Just do it.
Do a sign.
All right, so we'll do an employee parking sign
Doing the signs.
in the short term, and
maybe do
continue to look into stenciling those bags.
Yeah, and I'll send an email around that has some pricing options, and it can be...
How about thanks for your business?
I love
That's
it.
only 4 words.
I love it.
Parking
Just a
free, thanks for your
smiley face.
business.
Any other questions for me or for DCA while I'm here?
Yeah, but I mean, if you could continue to help us spread the word about
Yeah,
the
that'll-
employee parking, I mean, and then if they choose not to do it,
It's only
we did all
detrimental
that we
to
could
their
do.
own business, and that's the other message. You're only hurting yourself by taking up parking that a visitor could use.
That's right.
And then the free parking signs will come off around the farmer's market, around the Fountain Park on Friday night. I'll make sure they're well taken care of, and the no parking bags will go on. So,
I have a lot of meter bags.
I know.
Weekend warrior.
It's like,
I have the bags from their park.
Thank you.
all right, thanks, Kristen. Okay, the next order of business is the police report and distribution of the CPD building study. This is months in the making.
It's still the quickest study we've ever had.
That's good.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, I need to do a triple play here, so I'll just do it as it comes on the order of the agenda. So first, the stats from last month. And starting with administration, we had 58 hours, which was 5% of our time. We had 34 hours on criminal investigation, yielding 3%. Our accident investigations were 7 hours, which were 1% of our time. Vehicle patrol was 736 hours. That came to 63%. Foot patrol was 75 hours, which was 7% of our time. Training was 72 hours, 6% of our time. We had 14 hours of court for 1% of our time, and our overtime was 84 hours, and that was 8%. In adult arrests, we had 9, and that involved 18 separate charges. They are listed separately, which were 4 for traffic, 4 DWI related, 2 for assault, and 1 each for burglary, disorderly and ex parte violation, FOA, FTA, reckless endangerment, 1 case of theft, and 1 case of trespassing. We had 3 juvenile arrests. 1 was for burglary, 1 was for possession of CDS, and 1 was for possession of alcohol. We had no civil citations issued during the month. We had 4 Part 1 offenses. 3 were cleared by exception, 1 was unfounded. I'm sorry, 3 were cleared by arrest, and 1 was cleared by exception. And we had Part 2 offenses, there were 7, and there were 6 cleared by arrest, and 1 was cleared by exception. Motor vehicles, we had 13 citations issued. We had 69 warnings issued and 322 red speed citations. In Ward 1, we had 3% of our calls. Ward 2, we had 40%. Ward 3, we had 21%. Ward 4, 28%. Our busiest days of the week were Sunday and Monday, and our busiest hours, or most times for service, were between 5 and 6 and between 9 and 10. And I have your overtime breakdown by percentage. Pass that around as the last part of the monthly stats, and you can see that we had 43% of our time was shift coverage, training was 9, reimbursed was 9, 20% was court, our extended investigation was 15, and we had 3% for public relations. If there are no questions, we'll move on to the next agenda.
I do have one quick question.
Yes,
Do we not have a regulation against skateboarding in town?
there is.
I hate to be a party pooper, but I really came near to hitting a bunch of 5 or 6 young boys near here at the corner of Park Row and Cross Street, turning to come to Town Hall this afternoon.
They were on the sidewalk?
They were on the sidewalk, and they just appeared out of nowhere from behind a parked SUV. And I was starting to pull forward, and fortunately I was able to stop. But it scared the dickens out of me.
Yes, ma'am. And of course, that's the main concern, is their safety.
Yeah, and I mean, I came so close to hitting those young men, and it's just recklessness.
Yes, ma'am.
So
We're
all we
mindful
can
of it,
do.
but it's kind of difficult unless we're in the right place at the right time. But if you see that and have a concern, call us and we'll try and address it.
Yeah, they kept on coming right down here and zipped right across 213.
Next on the agenda, I'd like to...
I have a
Yes, sir.
comment.
I'll pass these on.
Just
Yes, sir.
before you get into this.
Uh-huh.
And I talked to Bill about it earlier. I don't want to be the Grinch that stole Christmas, but we have a town ordinance that says you can't sell ice cream from an ice cream truck while ringing a bell and riding through the neighborhoods. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but we got riding through our neighborhoods ringing the bells. Sooner or later, I'm going to get a call from some of the people in my area saying, wait a minute, I go to bed at 9 o'clock and I don't want to hear that damn thing ringing. So I think maybe a warning would be, the guy may not know it, but he's got to come into town and get a permit, so.
Okay.
Stop ringing his bell, so.
Duly noted.
Upsets my daughter.
Well, I'd like to thank, most of the members of the committee are here. I'd like to acknowledge them, first of all, if I may. and you can, I suppose, just stand if you would, please. I'd like to thank Mr. James Gatto, Ms. Joanne Clothier, I don't think is here. Mr. Paul Showalker is also not here. Mr. Robert Yeager. Ms. Tish Brown. And Mr. Keyston Moore. And although he's not acknowledged in writing, Bill was certainly quite a help to the committee. And I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give you, I think, just a synopsis of this. I think all of you were actually at the commissioners' meeting last week, I believe it was. And so I will reiterate most of that. And I'll entertain any questions, and then I think maybe a couple of our members would like to speak on where we go from here. But in short, the charge of this committee, which was formed at the, as I think I said last time, the twilight of the last council in May or in December, I believe, the charge was to consider a new space for the Chestertown Police Department. The committee quickly decided that we would explore three major options. One is a new construction of a standalone police department for Chestertown. By standalone, I mean only Chestertown Police. Second option was considering the retrofit or repurposing of an existing building for Chestertown standalone police department. And then lastly, very early in the process, we are always in communication with the Sheriff's Office and the 911 Center and recognize that they too are in a similar position in that they have outgrown their building. And it's not only, in all our cases, about space, but it's about technology and a lot of other things that are specifically required to function properly as a police department, and they are lacking in all those facilities. So the first meeting was held at the Chestertown Police Department, and unanimously the group felt that it was and is inadequate. A wordsmith back there said woefully inadequate, and that's accurate. So with regard to the joint facility, we intended to prepare three choices. However, there was only really one good choice for a public combined facility, and that is the location where the Sheriff's Department currently is. In the back, on the back hill, it's proposed that that would be a viable construction site, and I believe the county at this point has assigned some funds to further a study. That's what we advised last week. With regard to the building possibilities, we identified three sites in the report, and they are before you, and we identified three sites of buildings that exist, and they are also before you. The committee recognizes that the ultimate decision to even do anything, or certainly how to proceed, rests with the mayor and council. And we appreciate your consideration no matter where we go from here. Taking it one step further, the committee gently comes to a conclusion, and that is we believe it would be in the best interest of Chestertown and for the Chestertown Police Department to strongly consider the three sites of the existing buildings that are offered before you. We have many reasons for that. Complications with regard to timing and schedules of the public safety building. As I said before, I think it is a very viable point that maybe two police departments shouldn't be housed in one site as far as it, and the 911 service as far as it being one target. And that doesn't necessarily mean man-made target. It could be a hurricane or something like that. But it would be pretty prudent, I think, to be spread out. And then with regard to these three sites, they all have their own pluses and minuses. And it would certainly be a repurposing as far as environmental and greening type thing to utilize the buildings already there. It's quite a jump start. In most cases, they already have the infrastructure, parking lot, and those kind of things, which are huge expenses. And already having that step forward is quite a time saver. So that's, in a nutshell, very, very condensed version of what the committee looked at. And we had many sites, many buildings, many considerations, but we narrowed it down so that you had kind of something to work with, and you could go in any direction that you choose. But that's some very viable options. Mr. Yeager, did you want to have any conclusion with regard to moving forward?
Well, I suppose what we're interested in most now is having something happen. So I think I speak for the rest of the committee in saying that we'd like to see this at least on the agenda in the month of August, so that we can, so that hopefully the council will start to work on it, go through what we've done, where you agree with us, we're happy, where you don't agree with us. We'll see what the problem is. I think most of us on the committee are happy to stay along and work with you until we get somewhere. We really don't want to see. I think the need is really pressing. Once you've been around the police station, if you don't agree with us that it's woefully inadequate and quite frankly is a disaster waiting to happen. With that, I think expect to see us back here looking to see what happens next.
So let's make sure I'm clear. Your recommendation, as far as I'm gleaning here, is that you're recommending these 3 properties within town limits for a separate Chestertown police force, not a joint police force with the county, and those 3 properties are the Philosopher's Terrace building, the Bryce building, and the Kent Center building.
Yeah, that's correct, sir.
In the Kent Center building, aren't there currently tenants within the building, and then would you share that building with the existing tenants?
Everything's on the table, and that actually has changed since the beginning of this study, where I think it was totally vacant when we began, and it's my understanding that they do have some tenants again, so it got a little bit of life as the study went on. I don't know what their term leases are or anything like that, but when we initially looked at it, we were considering that it could be shared with some lease or occupied wholly by the police department.
So are you recommending that we purchase one of these buildings and retrofit it, rent it and retrofit it, or are you leaving that to us?
That is beyond the scope of this committee's expertise, I believe.
I'd just like to say just a couple of things. First off, I agree with you, stand alone. I go back long enough in law enforcement here. When they built that jail out there and put the sheriff's office in there, they had the state police in there. But the sheriff had 3 deputies, maybe 4. And they grew. Guess what happened? They left. They pushed the state police out. And I say that because that's what's going to, and this county is not going to stay this same size. We've been pretty well. It might not affect us, but even if the upper end of the county grows, like Middletown is coming down, it's coming, it's going to grow, the sheriff has to answer those. So if we were in a mutual building and they needed the space, you know, you're going to be without a place. And I think I talked to you once before. It also, we have 2 different missions and they don't really mesh well together. And if you're in a joint session, say, I think I use this as an example, you wanted to change a piece of exercise equipment if you happen to have an exercise room, you'd have to get okay from the other department. You couldn't just do it because you think your men's getting hurt or something. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think the autonomy of a Chestertown Police Department is the way to go. And the final thing I want to say is, I have, for some reason, I don't know how it happened, I have a reputation of being very frugal and tight with money.
Come on, come on, Mark.
I don't know how, it's a rumor, but I will say, I've said many, many times, the role of government is public safety and public health. And certainly if you're going to have a police department, that feels comfortable in doing their job, they need to have some place that they're comfortable in living in or working in. So while I'm not giving you a free rein on the town's coffers, I will say that it's something that I think is needed, and I would be acceptable to seeing something move along fairly quickly. I'm in favor of public service and public safety. The council knows I'm not in favor of buying marinas and those kind of things, but this is a different story altogether, and I hope that we can get something going soon.
I'd like to say, I mean, I totally agree with Marty. I have some pretty bitter experience of trying to manage a shared facility, and you start out with the clearest of understanding and the best of intentions, and things change. And before you know it, there may be some savings up front, but the heartburn and frictions down the road long-term can make those seem pretty trivial. Just a comment on the report. There are these 3 buildings presented for consideration. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to compare them in this report because, I mean, I guess we're looking at one that's clearly stated what the square footage is. Another one, I'm going to have to calculate it. It's 2 stories. Another one, there's no information really at all on square footage or on the structural, whether we're looking at load-bearing walls or not. So that's just a comment. If the committee has more information that would enable us to compare these facilities in more detail, that would be really helpful.
I do have some blueprint type stuff that's just not viable to put in that small paper, but I'll be happy to show them.
Of the 3 proposed sites, what is the committee's number 1 recommendation?
We didn't have a number 1 recommendation.
No number 1 recommendation?
So I was basically going to ask the same question. Are you of the mind then that all 3 of these proposed sites would adequately address your current needs and give you possible room to expand in the future?
Yes.
Let me offer you something. If we name a number 1 tonight, the price of that building's going to go up.
Exactly. That's why we don't have
What we need to do is say we're going to consider these things and let them know that we're considering them, but don't let them think that they're number 1 or number 2 or number 3. It just.
And let's not forget there are
it flies in making good sense.
4 properties suggested for potential building.
That should be a closed session. It is real estate. I think it falls well within the purviews of us to shut the press out and some of the public too when we discuss something of that nature.
Can I just clarify something? And it's pretty easy to do this. When you said Kent Center, the Kent Center's on Sheila Road, and this is Kent Family Center.
Not Kent Center.
I just happen to be involved with both of them, and I know it's not
Put your
Kent
family
Center.
in there.
Right, Kent, Peter. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Kent Family Center? Okay, thank you. And I was wondering too, the current use of Kent Family Center, is that still on your list?
Yes, but you mean with its current lease?
It's changed?
Yes, I said I'm aware that it has changed. I don't know how that would affect us.
One more question for you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
You are the chief, and you will be our chief for some time to come, I think. If you had the choice between standalone or a combination, I think you can make that determination because that's different than talking about real estate.
Yes, sir. I'm happy to reiterate, I believe the standalone is the best option.
You're a good man. I knew we made the right decision.
I would also like to point out just kind of one other thing, that police are good at not reinventing the wheel. So we did contact lots of police departments who were in similar situations. Some have built, some have taken over buildings. But in all cases, one of the primary statements that were given to us is make sure you allow for the future.
Yeah.
Many cases, they built what they needed or what they needed for 5 years, and they really got stuck and had to do the whole process over again in 10 years. So just for what that's worth, keep that in mind.
So looking at the entire building for the one on Philosophers,
Yes.
it's a big space.
It's a good size. It's actually segmented into 3 sections.
So let me get this
To help
straight.
the process along, if somebody out there wants to buy an old converted stable into a very, on a
We have
very nice
that, we have that as an
location,
option.
that's for sale.
Yes, sir.
So by our next meeting in 1 month, you guys want us to choose the best scenario
We
and
believe-
figure out how we're funding all this?
We believe
What do you want us to do?
We're
What do you?
beyond the scope of our expertise at this point. We think the next step is architect, someone who can interpret and assess these properties and make a more informed decision than perhaps we can.
Or if there's more things you think that we need to look into, just let us know and we would do that too.
Okay.
Is there people out there who design police buildings?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought. Somebody designed the one in Middletown, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
And if I could add, Marty, to that statement, a couple of the stations we went to, they specifically said to get an architectural firm, an architect who is experienced in police facilities, because they're already on track. You don't have to learn the process. I think that we had talked about it. We are at our limit. The council can then look at, in order to give an adequate review of the spaces we've given you, you're going to have somebody take a look at these with a professional eye and say, okay, this is the liabilities, this is the assets of each of those 3 sites, and here's what's going to cost you to retrofit those 3 sites. And that is a comparison to a build-alone, brand-new building. That can only come from somebody that is involved in the construction and design of the building on a day-to-day basis. What we've done is surveyed the entire town, looked at existing buildings that we could retrofit and lots. And we'll let down and present to you probably in the next month. We would like you all to be looking at an architectural selection system that would give you the data you need to make an adequate solution or an adequate choice.
I think that's a great idea. For me, a lot of this comes down to money, because what you're talking about is not cheap, and we're between budgets, and you've seen the budget, and there's not a lot of slush around there for cool new stuff that wasn't in the budget. And I think I agree with everybody. This is I think a pressing need, but did you guys study funding mechanisms or grants or ways that we can get the funding other than just taking it out of a budget where we don't have the money?
By my background, I have looked at some of this, okay? The Rural Development Administration, Farm Home, has talked to those people, and they've got some grant money, and they recommended that it be used for furnishing the inside of the building. It's $50,000. It's a start. It's not much. Everything else, there's going to be no single source of funding. It's going to be picking piece here, picking piece there. One of the advantages, perhaps, that and when we look at this with a joint facility, is could we access more funds with a joint facility? We don't have an answer to that. The only one that could possibly is the 911 center with Homeland Security. They have a very big tap of funds. Whether we could tap into that, I don't know. But that would be the next step. Once we have our site in sight and cost in sight, then we have to get busy with the grants and go after all the specifics that are out there. Because there's going to be no blank check for the whole thing.
There are 2 examples presented here of other police stations, and both of them have 550 square feet per officer. And I don't remember, I joined the committee for the tour in Middletown, which was really, really interesting. And I don't remember what they told us the square footage per
Middletown?
Per staff person was there.
I think, in a ballpark, I think they're around 30.
30 staff?
30 staff. and you
Well,
remember, right?
but is
It was-
550 per officer an appropriate amount of
Well,
space? That's what these two have.
But those agencies are smaller than ours.
Well, presumably if it's a per officer space, it doesn't matter, you just scale it up for staff size.
Oh, I
What I
see
was
what you're
going to say is, if we have 13 officers, then we need at least 7,200 square feet, and one of these buildings doesn't meet that. If 550 square feet per officer is the right
It
amount.
may require modification.
Just pointing that out.
Yes, ma'am.
The one thing about the officers too is they can share offices because they work shift work.
Right, but the square footage per officer, I assume, would include the entire facility, so your detention, your interrogation rooms,
If
your
you
storage,
have
your...
time to review that,
Yeah.
I think you'll see that we
They
tried
have it
to address
broken down
those.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a problem.
I need to look at it, and
Yeah. And-
I also need a magnifying glass for some of the graphics in here, so...
Okay. And then this, finally, this is like the hard copy, which is signed by each
Oh, that's good.
member.
Okay, pass that
We need to get Mr. Scholler to sign.
to Bill.
If I may move forward to the last of my triple play.
Sure.
Officer Spade, would you come forward? This is one of the best parts of my job. And Mayor, if I would ask, would you mind
Yeah.
coming and reading him the oath of office?
Do you have it for me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I don't know.
Swearing is fully
Just
approved
wait.
by that's dangerous.
I'd like to introduce Officer Louis Spate. He is born in Washington, D.C. and grew up, spent most of his young life in Prince George's County. He served, is currently on his eighth year of service in the Army Reserve. He did serve active duty in Afghanistan. He is a graduate, or will be a graduate Thursday evening from the Anne Arundel County Police Academy, Community College, or Police Academy. So we're very proud of him. We're very happy to have him here. And you'll be seeing him around. He's presently in our field training time at this moment. So he's on the job training, if you will, and we'll be cutting him loose soon. Now, so you want to come around here, and you can put your hand on the Bible, and I'll hold that for you, and you raise your right hand. And repeat after the mayor.
I, Louis Spate,
I, Louis Spate,
do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will be faithful
and that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland,
and bear true faith and allegiance to the state of Maryland,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of police officer
execute the office of police officer
of the Chestertown Police Department
for the Chestertown Police Department,
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
Congratulations. Thank you, sir.
Go around.
Congratulations. Thank you, ma'am. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I want to let you know that at least one other police officer in Chestertown, one of the best ones we ever had, was born in D.C. You're looking at him, I was...
Come from Battle.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One more thing.
Come from Battle.
But Piranha Sports from the Dragonfly is giving you $100 for the police force this year, and also for the town crew or for the town street activities. That's something nice they do every year.
Yes, it's very kind. We thank them very much.
It's the first time last year, second time this year. So.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so in terms of this report, what do we want our plan of action to be? That's a lot to digest.
It is. I
in a month.
actually had slightly earlier version, so I actually had a chance to look at it and study it. It's kind of, I mean, it's pretty technical stuff, and without actually getting some dollar information, I'm not quite sure how we, we proceed and make decisions.
We're gonna have to pay for another study?
No, pretty cheap.
Yeah.
If an architectural firm has an idea that they might get the job, they might send somebody down here just to see what they're getting into at a reasonable rate.
To read it and just, we'll bring
Do
it
you
up.
have a list of all grant sources?
No, because they're literally changed. If I would give you a seat of Pat's guess, I'd say that 65 to 80% of this building cost is going to be local right now. And the rest will be grants from various sources. And a lot of it will be equipment grants rather than structural grants. If I could suggest that the council take a look and before you can make a decision on a building site or building, you put an RFP out for engineer/architectural support to review the buildings and estimate cost of retrofitting and review a building cost ground up. Once you have some fairly significant numbers, then you can begin making decisions, I think. But what we wanted to present you with was a series of sites that we have already looked at, some positive, some negative, and that you could then hire the staff, the consultant necessary to look at only 4 sites and a standalone building. And you may come back with something with a joint facility, I don't know. But I think the council, the committee was initially started out with a lot of support for a joint facility, and as things moved on, we moved to separate facilities. It doesn't mean we would not consider a joint facility if the council wanted us to. But I think at this time, some money has to begin to be spent, and it should be spent with a targeted objective. And at that point, we can come back with you all and work with the consultant and you all to determine some final solution before we begin writing big checks.
Well, why don't we all take the next at least 2 weeks to look at this?
Bring it back.
Yeah.
I'll bring you the funding sources that we can find, so you just have an idea of where there's some potential, what the borrowed money costs and the cost of money, and the smaller grants.
Is 2 weeks enough time to bring this back up for discussion, or should we wait till our next month meeting from now?
If you bring it up every 2 weeks, at least it'll stay on the horizon.
I think we should have another discussion in 2 weeks,
Okay.
whether we can
Let's do
come
that.
to a...
If you don't,
Can you add that to
don't
the
have
agenda?
anything to add, don't feel bad. I mean, it's just, it's a
Yeah,
lot to
I mean,
take in.
But I agree with I think it was Jim who said that we really are going to need some expert. We're going to have to
Yeah.
get somebody
I'm
to carry this
afraid
forward.
of doing this on 3 sites. I think you need to narrow the focus.
I think we
from
can
3
do that.
sites.
I think we can do that.
And then you're dealing with
And-
real figures.
And then also, don't forget, there's also the option of new construction.
Right.
And some sites offered in the report for that. And sometimes retrofitting can be more expensive and you don't get what you
Sometimes people are
want.
anxious to build you something, but
That's true too.
they did a lot of work. The committee,
Yeah, they did.
Should we-
Thank
think
you
I was
guys
almost
very
every
much.
meeting.
Thank you.
Can we put in a formal motion of thanks? Or, I mean,
Yeah, that's something you can do right now.
A formal motion of thanks.
well, that it's on the record that we formally thanked
Well,
the
they're not
crew.
finished yet.
Well,
They're gonna
this
keep
is
on
what we
working.
asked
They are,
them.
they gave you a
This is what we asked them to do.
Go
Or
ahead,
they were
Liz.
asked to
Make
do,
the
not by
motion.
me.
Make the motion.
I think, yeah, I'd like to move that we record,
2 weeks first?
Yes.
Okay, we will all probably be here again.
We're gonna double the pay you already got.
Okay? People are really generous.
We'll give you travel from your house to here.
$400 a mile?
Go ahead.
I'd like to move that we record in the minutes of this meeting our thanks to the, I'm looking for the formal name of the group. There isn't really one. The Chestertown Police Building Study Group for its work and the excellent report they've provided to us.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I can imagine someone voting no against that.
Let the record show we unanimously voted
Just
to
the thought,
thank
you
the
imagine
commission.
it worries me, you know.
All right, let's move on to the town manager's report. Bill Ingersoll.
He didn't put me on there. I'm going to take up some really exciting and good news that I was going to bring up in the utilities meeting. And I have a couple of copies for the press. Last Friday, we opened bids for the solar array at the Lagoon property. We did this April a year ago, and because, for two reasons we didn't do anything. One was because I thought the PPA bids, power purchase agreements, weren't in line with what I thought they should be based on the benefits that developers had for that. And the design, the build part of it worried me because we had already borrowed money for the marina and we had a new council coming in, and I didn't think it was fair to strap them with that. We opened 13 bids on Friday, at least the mayor did, and I boiled this down. I'm not going to read every one of them. I'm going to read out the low bids for option 1 and the low bids for option 2.
What are option 1?
Option 1 is a build. The developer builds the solar facility, we finance it or they finance it, and it becomes ours. That option doesn't have the tax benefits that 30% tax credits that the private sector gets. The SRECs could be ours, could be theirs. The option 2 was a PPA, a power purchase agreement. And that was the thing that I felt that they were too high last time. So out of the 13 bids, the lowest bid for option 1, which was lower than last year, was bid number 11, Baker Renewal, at $2,230,864. Bid number 2 for a build was Altus Power America and Martier Solar USA, number 6. And number 3, and that was $2,458,301. Option 3 was Tecta Solar. They were a very low bidder last time. That was bid number 2, $2,490,551. The really exciting news came in option 2 this time. Option 2, the low bid was Solar City at 4.5 cents, no escalation clause over 20 years. Bid number 2 for PP, that was Solar City was number 3. Number 10, Nautilus Solar Energy LLC, Summit, New Jersey, 5.65 cents with no escalator for 20 years. And the third PPA was number 12, Blue Oak Energy, 6.75 cents with no escalator over 20 years. And they give up, there are other options that you'll read here. These are fantastic and amazing bids. And
how much energy are we talking about here?
1.2 megawatts.
And that's enough to power how much?
Our whole town government, both utilities and the town itself. All our meters. We're behind the meter, all aggregated meters. Now,
what are we paying now, Bill?
We're paying 6.875 cents for a 3-year period that ends in May of next year. This is our second agreement for 3 years. The first one was around 7 cents, the second one was 6.8. But you see the low bid here is 4.5 cents for 20 years. Our lowest bid last year was 8.5 cents for a PPA. So I'm going to, actually I think we should have these checked out by a solar expert if I can find one that has no connection at all with this. But I'd say that out of these bids, and you can look at them all, and they're all here if you want to look at the full bids, they're outstanding. My guess is that with some of these benefits coming to an end in 2016 or so, that people are trying to lock in, at least with the present government and the present benefits being the SRECs and the 30% of benefit for private investors. They're trying to lock in.
I don't think you have to have 5 years' experience building these things. That goes back to
An old story.
holes in the ground. But I assume these people all are in the business and have done other work.
Some of these are very big. Solar City's big.
Isn't that, your main branch is out in California, isn't it?
I think so. But anyway, obviously, we have to check the pedigree.
So if I understand right, then option 2, we would pay for the power, but we wouldn't pay for building the,
Wouldn't pay to build, they'd build on our site. All those things that we were asked to do are done by the developer, the Delmarva.
and then how long?
permitting and all.
No escalator means?
No escalator.
We would pay that rate forever?
20 years.
20
guaranteed.
yees.
Yeah.
And they do the repairs and all the other.
So they own it, we just buy the power
Right.
from them?
Right.
That's what I figured.
I had heard that,
But what are you paying? I don't know.
More than 4.5 cents.
over 7 or so. Those things that were sold a few years ago in the county were around 7, and that, frankly, last year, if we had been given around 7, I would have said, take the PPA. I think that's a way better deal than trying to build it ourselves and worry about the inverters and the panels and hurricanes and all that stuff. So I will be back at the next council meeting. I have it written in here that we have till like September 18th to review these things, make sure we check out the companies and all that. But I tell you, I read 3 because there are 3 excellent ones for PPA, 3 excellent ones for building. So I think we got, I think we were wise to bid it again. And let me go on with the rest of my report. I have copies of that for the press if you'd like the whole thing. I think we're deferring the Recreation Commission meeting, ordinance till the next meeting. Crazy days are this week, the 24th, 25th, and 26th. I gave the checks out on the Dragonfly donations to the town. I think that's admirable that they even think that way, that they have. And the last thing is I'm just mentioning that we had another open meetings complaint from a Mr. Craig O'Donnell, who's now a private citizen and not working for any particular paper. It's been handed over to our attorney, and I'm not going to make any comment other than I think we will prepare an answer to this. And that concludes my report.
All right, thanks, Bill. That brings me to my report. I'm actually going to go to item D on my report, because I know there's a lot of people here from that, for the 400 block kids. Can I do that?
Yeah.
Can I just do that?
You're mayor, you can do anything.
You can do whatever you want.
I'm doing it.
The one that's
You can close
not
the
on our
meeting. You
agenda.
can say, let's all go to a bar somewhere. We didn't.
Are we gonna get out by 9:30
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Northleaf, this Reverend Tyler. And I come to speak on the 400 Kids program, which we started a little summer program for kids 6 to 12. And what we do, we go around the town of Chestertown, keeping it clean, picking up trash, litter from yards, sidewalk, gutters. This is our 6th week into the program. When the program first started, we promised the kids that we would give them a weekly allowance for participating in the program. We also promised them that we would try to take them to 6 Flags for being in the program. And we also would like to have a ceremony award cookout to hand the certificates for each kid that participated in the program. For the 6 weeks, we have been working on donations from the community, a few local businesses like Readers. They donate free ices every Friday. Chestertown Garage has donated. Louis Dairy, Super Soda Chew, Sharp Trees. So what we come here today for, we need help in getting the kids to 6 Flags, and we need help with the ceremony. We have been in touch with Sam off and on throughout the whole program. So the last thing that we needed was invoices. So if the town was going to, help or donate, that they could pay directly to the supplier. So I have the invoices for the Six Flags, which we planning to take 23 kids and 10 adults, because we have 10 team leaders running their time every morning. Myself, Mr. Gary Lively, Jamie Barrett, Geraldine Munson, Ivan, Arlington, and a few others. We also supply them something cold to drink every day, snacks that we have been donating out of our own pockets to keep the program going. We have 2 to 3 more weeks before the program ends. It ends August the 15th. That's the same day that we want to take the kids to Six Flags. Now, with the invoice that I have with Six Flags, they say that I need 10 days before the day that we're going to take the trip with a check, so they can note it in for the program. Not only that we working with the kids to try to teach them our work ethics, we also try to, like Reverend Tyler teaches music. So once a week we try to get the whole group of kids together, which is difficult sometimes, so we can teach music lessons. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the Reverend Tyler.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I guess the main reason why I'm here is in support of the program. These gentlemen have taken it among themselves to organize a small group of kids. And the great thing about it is there's a group of young men that are doing it. They take donations from the neighborhood. They self-govern the kids. And it's been a great program. They have testimonies from parents of how their kids' behavior has changed as a result of being a part of it. And what they're coming to do to council is ask for their support in ending their program for this year. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to I guess not the debate, but the process talking about how you between budget, and they do realize that money is tight. But they're coming asking for some help so they can finish up the year for these kids who had a successful summer all this time. They have their documentation in order. They have all the invoices and bills and spreadsheets that you need to look at how the money that they have raised has been effectively distributed. So anything that you need from them, they have to offer you to verify that their program is on the up and up and that they are worthy of your support. And yes, we do have what's known as, we're calling it the Uptown Youth Chorale, which is part of the program, and hopefully we'll come to you later on with maybe a concert. You can come to the closing ceremony and hear them sing at the closing ceremony. Well, Mr. North is asking me to read this letter. This is from one of the parents. It says, I'm writing to inform you of what a tremendous difference the 400 Block Kids summer program has made in my son's life in the 3 weeks he's participated. The program helps I guess I shouldn't say his name, but our program helps the young man see himself as a part of this community. It's also teaching him responsibility. For example, he's saving his allowance because he has earned it by cleaning up the community. He's learned to behave and listen to other adults, and he also wants to wake up to go to his job, as he calls it. He loves helping. I also feel that this program boosts his self-esteem because he gets such positive reinforcement from the adults that work with him daily. I also feel him being in this program will increase the likelihood that he will continue helping others. We both love this program and hope it can continue. It's been great for the children. And this is signed by one of the parents who actually is a student. He doesn't even live in the neighborhood. He comes from outside the neighborhood and is still benefiting from it. So this is just an example of the kind of thing that's going on with this program that this gentleman developed.
And how much exactly is the invoice for Six Flags?
The invoice for Six Flags is $923.49. That includes 23 kids, 10 adults, and also the parking of the vehicles.
I think it's obvious how good of a program this is.
Right.
And you said you've been doing this for 6 weeks and you've been able to accomplish everything that you've done so far. Do you plan on doing this annually? So every summer, the 400 block kids will clean up the community?
Yes, and also, we're going to try to plan while they're still in school, like the music program.
We can
And this lady here, she's drama. She does plays, and we're going to try to introduce them into that. And we also have a facility that is going to be known to us, where if kids need after school, help program. So we're going to try to continue throughout the school year, not as much as the summer, but to keep it going all year round, so we can bring them into the summer program.
What facility is that?
It's
The board of the Historical Science Centers is allowing us to use that space if we ever need it for rehearsal. Also, Bethel Church has been instrumental in allowing us to use their space as well. The board is on point with this to do it.
Very nice.
Have you had any contact at all with the existing youth corral in town?
Well, I'm familiar with it,
Just in
but
case.
I'm looking more at something that's geared toward the kids from uptown. I'm
they're
an old
kids
school
from all over.
uptown guy, and I'm big on trying to preserve our cultural heritage in that area.
And I also like to add, since the program has started, Calvert Street, Lynchburg Street, and Prospect Street has been this clean in the last 3 years.
They're saving us some.
Very nice.
I've got 2 brand new brooms for you guys if you want them. We bought them and nobody picked them up. And I think Billy Arrowood had intended to, but they're right in my office. So.
And how old are these boys?
From 6 to 12.
Great.
And young ladies too. It's not just
Of course, the boys.
Are you working with the Bayside Hoyas at all? Or are you working separately? They have a youth group, basically doing
They're
about the
mostly
same
working,
thing.
the Hoyas are an older group though.
Yeah, they are.
So, but it would be nice to potentially have the kids transition into the Hoyas once, of course, they come into age. So I think there could be some collaboration between the 2 programs. I mean, the Hoyas were just up on the screen helping break down the former pavilion, so they've certainly made a lot of traction in the community too. But I would certainly love to support the cause as much as we can. But also, this may be a good time to bring up that with this particular program, potentially come next year, it might be best suited under the Recreation Commission. So having that dialogue as to who exactly they could potentially get their funding for next year is certainly worthwhile. But as for now, I would certainly like to support the Six Flag trips for the 23 kids and the 10 adults.
How much is it if you back out the cost for the adults?
Without having some of them. Per child.
Because we're doing it as a group, Six Flags had brought the price down for $29.50 per ticket. And every 15 ticket, you get a free ticket.
Oh.
So,
It's complicated.
How much is it for 15 tickets?
it's every 15 ticket, they will donate a ticket or give a ticket.
Yeah, but how much are the 15 tickets?
$29.50 per.
$29.50.
It's basically $30 a ticket.
It's 30
Times 15 would be $4.50.
$4.50. Then you get one from you, so you put on another.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, for the Bayside Warriors, the county allocated $2,500 to continue their program, also includes a trip to.
That's good enough.
Yeah. Can we move on this?
Well, I think we need to move on it to next meeting based on the ordinance that we passed.
Well,
But they won't have their chicken time
they
then.
have to, you have to lock this in by what date?
It has to be 10 days before the date that we plan to take.
And what day is that?
15.
The 15th.
So we can't do it at our next meeting.
Yeah.
Well, we can, but you have to do it for sure. I think this is what the unappropriated surplus is for. I wouldn't take it out of the Recreation Commission budget because they're tight on theirs. But this is a community-oriented thing. It's just something I think you need to do. They put their end of it up, all their effort and time and supervision of the kids. And there's been a lot of dialogue back and forth between the community and the town office here about what they need, and it could have been more, actually. Sam's contacted me about improvements that could be done, so I commend you, but I think that's, you know, that
We have time.
the fact that they've gotten the
Our
invoices.
next meeting is the 4th
Is the
of August.
4th.
So
And
if
they're
you
gonna
know,
put a check
if you
in the mail?
you know you're gonna pass it, do you want, we'll help them with the paperwork for the next meeting, but you need to say you're gonna pass it at the next meeting pending the paperwork. They're giving you the invoices, they'll follow the process, but they're gonna need to send the check before that to make sure it gets there.
Well, I would like to make a motion then that we fully fund the Six Flag trip for the 23 students, but also the 10 adults. And that comes out to a total of $923.40.
49 cents.
49 cents. Pending, of course, you know, the appropriate invoices which they have and the passage of this motion.
Just make that motion in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I mean, it has to be sent.
they have to mail a check that has to get there 10 days before their
Right.
visit on August the 15th. So unless they want an overnight check.
Cutting it really quick.
It's cutting it very, very tight. I'd hate to see them disappointed just because of 48 hours.
So, I mean, they already have most of the paperwork. It just comes down to that one form that they have to fill out. I can take that to them and have it brought back, I mean, within the week, so.
Well then,
Well, there's a motion.
if you would do that legwork and make sure everything gets through, then the check could be issued in time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, I would second that motion.
Did you just second that motion?
She did.
All those in favor?
Are you gonna be this ceremony?
And I was gonna come to that after we get done with this.
We're in
Yeah, right.
a, Ivan, we're in a motion, so.
Hold on.
So, yeah. I
All those in
seconded.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Marty just left the room.
I'll make that again.
Can I say aye?
Yeah.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstention.
Okay.
Is Mario an abstention?
I don't know.
Whatever Marty just did, I don't know. That, what are we gonna call that?
Well, 3
Absent.
I
passes,
call it
so-
blood.
Yeah, 3 passes. So.
Okay, it's
We'll get his
approved.
vote.
You gonna be through the ceremony?
I don't have my schedule in front of me. I'm gonna be in Chestertown. What time is it?
We was gonna have a ceremony August the 23rd, starting at like noon.
Just, I would love to do it if I'm available. I'm absolutely in. And you never took me up. I was gonna sponsor one of those kids.
Oh, yeah, it's not too late.
You're gonna ask me for it retroactive? But just tell, either email me on my town email or ask Sam to email me and give me the time, the date and time. And if I can make it, I would love to.
And where will
be
it be?
there.
We could probably switch the day, one day to it.
I'm not that important, but I mean, that'd be cool. No, I would love to do it. I would love to do it.
Where is it gonna be?
It's gonna be, well, I guess I would say Calvin Street where the alley, where,
Yeah.
Okay. And at noon, you said?
yes.
I'd like to come too.
All right.
So, could you, it was the August 23rd?
August 23rd
Saturday.
at noon.
What was your vote? They're wondering what your vote was.
Calvert Street.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
So Sam, can you make sure that you get the proper paperwork to them and on time? I'll go back up to the top of my list, which is to appoint John Ames Jr. to the Historic District Commission for a 3-year term. I brought this up at our last meeting. Everybody seemed amenable to it. So do we need a motion to do that?
To do what?
Historic district.
To make an official appointment?
I'll move to appoint him.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second. I'd rather
All
second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let the record show that John Ames Jr. has been appointed to the HDC for a 3-year term. Meeting to discuss the sign ordinance with the Planning Commission and Historic District Commission.
We can just scratch that off.
Okay. So that is not going to happen on August 20th.
It's not.
Do we have a new date? No.
No.
It's not?
No, it's not.
The
What-
DCA decided to form a committee, and then they'll come back with it.
The DCA is going to basically poll their members, try to come up with a list of their recommendations about potential edits, and then we will work with the Planning Commission and the HDC potentially at their next regularly scheduled meeting in September. But it's really up to when DCA has their...
So it's definitely not in August?
It's definitely not August 20th. And Michael, did you make a note of that, mental note of that? This is a recent development within the last couple of days. So. Other upcoming meetings. I have sort of an informal meeting tomorrow with a working group that I put together to discuss directional signage, primarily downtown, but potentially spreading out of town. And my hope is we'll have 2 or 3 meetings and come up with sort of a skeleton plan that the group will then report back to the mayor and council when it's ready. Other meetings, I have a meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock right here with a group called the Washington Avenue Neighborhood Association, a newly formed group. Basically, they've been very frustrated with some rental units on Washington Avenue, and they want to discuss things they can do to, with the town to help better the situation. I'll just put it that way.
What's their problem?
The problem is they're surrounded by rental units, many of whom have absentee owners and have been in recent years have been occupied by college students.
This is lower end of Washington.
It's basically between Spring Avenue and Campus Avenue.
Okay,
That
I didn't know whether it was up in the business district or what.
Yeah, so suffice it to say, there've been a lot of loud parties, and they feel like we, on our end, and on police's end, and the college's end, needed to be doing more to help them deal with the situation. We have, what are the other meetings coming up?
You have one next,
The 29th, you have the
29th.
public meeting with the county, 7 o'clock.
I'm just losing my mind.
July 29th?
Oh, yes. On Tuesday, July 29th at 7 o'clock in this room, we are going to have a public meeting to get input on the grant application that we hope to submit to the Community Parks and Playground program to rehabilitate the recreational facilities of Kent County Middle School. So that'll be in this room next Tuesday, 7 o'clock, open to the public. We'll basically show them the same diagram we showed to the Kent County Commissioners, kind of give a history of how we came to that design. I know that at least Lisa Orem, the vice principal of the middle school, will be here to kind of give their reasoning for the elements of the design, and Dr. Couch informed me that she will also be there. So we should have good representation from all the interested parties amongst the applicants, and we're hearing for comments from the neighbors.
And that's being publicized how?
I have it on the front door, and I also have an ad in the paper this week.
Okay.
Yep. And I've also contacted both the Spy and the Kent County News to just assist as they can with getting the word out.
Yeah.
And I've also talked to Bill Arrowwood of the Chestertown Recreation Commission, and he's gung-ho to get the word out as well. I think that covers upcoming meetings for now. Another order of business, my last order of business, is that there is a vacancy on the Recreation Commission, and I received an email from Commissioner Billy Arrowwood. He would like to appoint Jane Jewell to fill that vacancy on the Recreation Commission.
I would move to appoint her.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is done, and that concludes my report. So we're going to move to ward reports. We're going to start tonight with Liz Gross in Ward 1.
Right. I have a couple of things in my ward, mostly for Bill's attention. When you approach the intersection of Kent and Philosopher's Terrace, either coming down from Campus Avenue or coming along Kent Street from the east. The stop signs in both of those directions are obscured by foliage. You don't see them until you're right there. There is a pedestrian problem on Kent Street. I know it was raised close to the end of the last mayor and council's term by Mr. Gatto, and I completely agree with him. People, it is a blind curve, and at the very least, if we can't have a sidewalk in there, would it be possible to have a sign that says, "Danger, no pedestrians on this side of the street"? There's a lot of shrubbery, so if you're walking on Kent Street towards Washington Avenue, from...
The middle school?
Yeah, from that direction.
Garnet?
Yeah.
Is
No,
there
no,
any
no,
money
no,
left
no,
in
no,
that
from
sidewalk program?
from, if you're coming along Kent Street from, what would be a handy there? Barrel, David, all those streets. Coming towards the stop signs at Philosopher's Terrace, there's a slight curve in the road, and there's a lot of heavy, dense shrubbery there. So it's a kind of a blind curve, and people walk there. And there isn't any protection for pedestrians at all. So if we could look at some option to increase the pedestrian safety there, I think that would be a good thing to do. I'm not quite sure what all the solutions are. I want to express my thanks to Case Des Moines for incredibly fast action. I had complaint from a resident in my own ward, actually about an overgrown property just on the other side of High Street. And I mentioned it to him. The grass was cut within 3 hours.
Nice.
So that was good. And I just want to register our growing concern about the condition of the trees at Margot Bailey Park. I raised it with Bill, and it's comforting to know that the trees are all guaranteed for 2 years and can be replaced. But there is something definitely wrong, and I suspect that the trees weren't not in the best of condition when they were put in the ground, and with the hard winter that we had.
Well, there was a beetle complaint, but we got that taken care of.
Yeah.
We went in there and sprayed the beetles,
So we have...
And the evidence of it is right underneath the trees.
Right.
There's thousands of dead beetles underneath.
So it's a very bad year for those. But anyway, I just want to, so that you're all aware of it, that, we may be looking at a major replanting up there. That's it, what I have to...
Linda?
Well, the only thing I did have was for the meeting with the Historic District Commission and the Planning Commission and DCA is canceled. Our meeting tomorrow night with the Washington Avenue folks. And then I would like to pass out some legislation just for you to look at.
Got one.
You got one? For the food trucks. It just amazes me how readily we can hand out money, but when it comes to creating new business, how much controversy and agony new business owners or potential new business owners have to go through in Chestertown to open a new business.
I don't really understand where you're coming from.
It's an accumulation of sign ordinance, new businesses, food truck, which gets ongoing publicity for negativity.
We basically passed on a provisional basis the food, we basically said she could open pending a visit to the planning commission.
And what
Have
did
you talked to them about how that
What did
went?
the planning commission say?
You should talk to them.
She changed the site.
The site wasn't the
And came
same
in
as
with
what the mayor and
nothing.
council said, okay.
Where'd she go?
I understand the town gets a bad rap for that, but I have to tell you, I feel like we are bending over backwards for certain... it's easy to bash the town when things aren't going your way. I guess I'll just put it that way. And when people buy into it without really looking into the facts of what the town tried to do to accommodate certain people or businesses, they don't have the whole story.
Well, in Ward 3, Bill, thank you for those streetlights. There have been major improvements on Flatland Road with the installation of additional streetlights. So we're talking about a huge difference. You walk that road at night, which a lot of residents did prior to these lights being installed. I mean, the lights were just very few and far between. And without an adequate shoulder, I mean, there were oftentimes many cases in which I came close to brushing a resident that I just didn't see who was walking on the road. But those new lights were installed and things look fantastic. So, so I'm glad I could deliver one for the residents of Flatland Road. So thank you, Bill. And that's just about it for me.
I remember seeing you on your day off out there, putting those bulbs in those. Things are going pretty well in Ward 4. We haven't had any break-ins since the chief did his work. And we did have a new bench. Some lady donated $1,000, and we got a new bench in the dog park. And all of us, I think, are asked from time to time about different functions that go on in town and whether they should do it, even if it is a commercial enterprise. And I went on the Chester River packet boat on the dinner cruise, and it's well worth your time and your money. And they do a nice job and put you in there, make you feel comfortable, and so I think it's a real asset to the town. And they live at our dock.
I think if you asked Mr. Kimmel if he got any help launching from that county dock at High Street, he'd say thank you to the town for all that we did in parking him at the marina and also getting him into the foot up High Street, which is owned by the county. And at first they said you can't do it, but after being talked to, they...
If you haven't done it, do it. I mean,
yeah, it's cool.
I don't know about you. You spend enough time on it.
I do. I see them out on my whaler all the time.
Can I just say, Mr. Pickram gave me these keys, somebody's not going to go very far, that he found left in the men's room. So, somebody hasn't got their keys, you know where they are.
Is that who just ran in here, James? I hear noise.
Who leaves their keys in the bathroom?
Put them down to powder his nose.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the audience?
I think you might have some.
Questions or comments from the audience? Yep.
I'm John East. I drafted the food truck legislation. I don't want to be confused with Ashley. She's a wonderful person. I was not at the planning commission meeting, so I've heard reports too that she did not handle things as well as perhaps she could have. The main distinction with what I drafted with what the town and council approved at the last meeting is that as opposed to solving this problem for one citizen, I would solve it for everyone. It would also change the ability for people to have food trucks on public land. And the mayor and town council offered Ashley to have food trucks on private land. So she has to pay rent. It's about $150 from what I understand. And that license is $150. That's a lot of money. What I drafted puts us in line with Centerville, and there's a schedule of other comparable towns that are all Eastern Shore, but although I did add Annapolis and one other non-Eastern Shore town, I can't remember which one. But they're all very comparable areas, and so the fee schedule there, $35 is not the highest number, it's not the lowest number, but so I don't want to confuse the two strands, I guess.
So did you draft this specifically for us to look at as a potential ordinance to adopt, like a recommendation from?
I drafted it with the hopes that someone would be willing to introduce it. I'm not sure Councilwoman Kuiper has introduced it formally. I don't know your procedure for that. So, but I thought it, as opposed to fixing things for one person, maybe we should look at the public policy here, because Councilman Stetson, you told me a very valid objection to what I drafted at the park on Saturday, which is that we do have a town where a lot of people struggle, brick and mortar businesses struggle to stay open. My partner Steve Meehan just bought the hotel. We're trying to keep that restaurant open underneath our law firm. It's tough. It's tough to find someone to do it. It's a low margin business. On the other hand, where I work in DC, in 15 years I've brought my lunch basically twice. I've seen in the last 2 years a real explosion in people who were bringing their lunch to work a couple times a week now, going to food trucks because they're new and interesting. A lot of them are ethnic food. And I know here, as much as I like eating at the Imperial, and I hope people continue to do so, sometimes if I want something a little different, I have to go to Kent Island, or I have to go to Delaware, and I sort of like to see us be a food destination. The reason I chose the park is because unlike the parking lot, or like a private parking lot, there's seating. So people can go out in the middle of the day, you'll see people really use that park. Also, I chose that because the park has been set aside for food sales since we were a colony. It used to be called Market Square before it was Fountain Park, and that's where we had our town market, a major one. I also chose foot of High Street because there's plenty of parking, and I thought if you could draw people down to the waterfront, they'll see the packet boat, they'll see the Sultana, and then they'll go, maybe we should come back on Friday and book, a cruise on one of these boats. I have done an informal survey of a couple Chestertown college people that I meet around here who are still, straggling around here in the summer, and I've asked, would you walk into town for a food truck? And I've had 100%, it's not a formal survey, but I've had 100%, oh yeah, that'd be great. Then I hope they buy a bag of Tom's, or maybe they'll go for gelato or ice cream at Stan's or Evergreen. So I'm not sure that we would lose business as much as increase business in the amount of money being circulated in the economy. And so there's what Ashley's doing, and then there's what I drafted. So I just wanted to make the distinction.
Did Ashley have this at the planning commission? Because I know that she gave something to the chairman.
I do not believe she figured that out.
Because
but I was not there.
The planning commission was going to also look into making some changes and discuss that at their next meeting.
And I would add one more thing, Councilman Stetson, I think you're absolutely right. What I've done may be inadequate in a crucial respect. Maybe there should be a noise regulation attached, paragraph 5, that says after 9 o'clock, you cannot have a klaxon, you cannot have a horn, you can have no audible amplified sound. Because I think you're right, people do want to be able to go to bed at a reasonable hour.
I really appreciate your efforts, and I think this is actually a more complicated issue than a lot of people realize, and it's particularly for downtown. We're really talking about 2 square blocks, whereas DC, a food truck shows up, you still have a huge city where you can just go buy stuff wherever you want. And I do see how if this becomes a big food truck destination, it sucks business out of JR's and Ellen's, for example. And the reason that site didn't work out is because the local food providers didn't want the competition. And I think it's a valid concern, and I don't think it should be dismissed, but I guess my point is, it's not always the town government that's quashing people's businesses. Sometimes the other business owners aren't on board because they see it as an unfair threat to them because they're paying rent on a building. So I think that's a very valid concern that really needs to be considered carefully here.
I absolutely agree. I have not done a formal polling, but I know I've heard that JR is in favor of it. Doug Ray's in favor of it. Steve Meehan, who's on the hook for the Imperial, is in favor of it. So is Carol, the owner of the Fish Bowl. So from what I've heard, either I've talked to them or Ashley's talked to them. The owner of the Blue Heron is opposed. He's also not open at lunch. The owner of Ellen's is opposed. However, I would just say respectfully that I will never be in a position where I decide I either want a taco or Indian food, or I want diner food. I either want one or I want...
I understand. I'm just saying that it's not just a slam dunk issue, like food trucks are great for everybody. I think it would be great to go buy a taco right now from, Ashley. I think if she's ever opens that, I think she will sell a lot of tacos because she's a dynamo. But I just...
Air conditioning and a nice place to sit, come to a hotel.
Yeah. So I appreciate this, and I think, the procedure I would think would be to turn this over to our zoning administrator and the planning commission and have them vet it out. And, I think it's time for us to look at this because this is like kind of an up and coming niche business.
You see the same thing playing out with Uber and taxi drivers, Uber's this ultra modern contemporary business, car ride sharing thing. And it's squeezing out a very heavily regulated taxi industry. And there's a lot of pushback, not necessarily from the politicians themselves, but more so from the cab drivers and the industry that supports them. So, but it's just like, do you want to squash a new upstart straight off the bat simply because there are other businesses pushing up against it? And it's like I said, it's a very complex issue, but it's free enterprise, And it's with Blue Heron, I don't think they're going to be competing with people who are looking to buy a $5 taco. But
I agree, but if you can't just look at it like the taco truck's not going to compete with them. You have to look at it like if we make this a permitted use, it could be somebody selling high-end lunch, whatever, that is very similar. So I see his concern.
Selling high-end food.
What's that?
You have a boat selling high-end.
I know, I'm just saying, I don't think their concerns are invalid, is all I'm saying. Okay, other comments or questions from the audience? All right, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Please, motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?